Welcome to Tulsa Titans, highlighting our local professionals who are making a difference. Today, I've got Tad Bogan. He's a shareholder at Jones, Gotcher Bogan. Tad, get us started by telling us a little bit about yourself.
You bet. Thank you for having me. I was a little shocked that you called me because I don't quite consider myself a Titan, but I appreciate you having me. So I grew up in Tulsa. I struggled my way through Jenks High School. Was not much of a student growing up. Didn't really have my passion or know exactly what I wanted to do. So I kind of coasted along. But I graduated from Jenks, and then I went to the University of Oklahoma, and came back to Tulsa to go to law school. After I graduated, I actually worked at my firm that I'm with now as a clerk in central services, doing mail and fax and copies and things like that during the summer, and kind of really found my passion in law and decided that's what I wanted to do, and kind of locked in and started making the grades I needed to make to get into law school. So did that. And it's funny, I made better grades in college than I did in high school. And I made better grades in law school than I did in college. But so I came back to Tulsa to go to law school, and graduated and clerked at this firm also. So I was a clerk at the firm. Obviously my name's in the firm, but it's actually my dad. My dad worked here. I think he started in 1970 and he passed away in 1990 when I was 10. So I never got to work with him here, but certainly knew some folks up here still that were around from when he was here, and reached out to them when I was in law school, and obviously it worked up here in doing the central services. So I reached out to them and clerked here for my last about year and a half of law school, and then came to work here as an associate starting out, obviously, and worked here until 2014. And then in 2014, I got approached by a trucking company that was looking for a general counsel, and I was, I think, 34 years old, so I was pretty young, and I thought, wow, that's quite the opportunity. I don't know if that's going to come back around until I'm in my 50s or 60s, and so I considered it and thought about it a lot. It was obviously a huge decision to make. I am not one to bounce around or leave or do things like that, so it was really a tough decision for me, but ultimately one I made. So I left the firm in late 2014 and went and was general counsel of the trucking company. About 2.5 years into that, our parent company out of Alabama decided to make a change, and they made me the president of the company. So I went from being general counsel to the president, and I'd only been in trucking for 2.5 years at the time. So it was quite the responsibility. Something I would absolutely do again. Wouldn't take it back. It was an incredible experience. I learned a ton. We had a lot of, I got to deal with private equity groups out of New York and finances and doing all of the things that go along with running a pretty large size company. And so our business unit was one of 5 that the parent company owned. And I ran the one that was based out of Tulsa, and we had 11 locations. We were in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas. And so I did that for almost 3 years. And then they decided to make a change and actually let me go. And I'd love to say I got laid off. I'd love to say it was a reduction in force. It was a change in direction is what it was. And, it was, for my ego, it was a tough pill to swallow, but I also understood it. From the day that I started doing that, I knew that I wanted to make that company bigger than me, and bigger than, and outgrow my abilities. And we had 2 really, really successful years, my first 2 years. And for those that don't know private equity well, your leash is not real long when performance isn't there. And by performance, I mean money. When you're not making the money you need to make, there's not a ton of patience. And I ended up ultimately hiring my replacement, because it was a guy that I brought to Tulsa from South Carolina to be my vice president of operations. And he was really talented operator. I thought that was he was a great compliment where I lacked in trucking specific experience and execution experience and oversized loads. It was a specialized trucking company, so there was more to it than than some other trucking companies have. They all have their challenges, and that's a very challenging industry, no matter what you're doing. But you add some complexity when you're doing over-dimensional loads and having to pick different trailers for different loads and things like that. So the guy that I hired, I thought was a great, a great asset to the company, and would really complement my skill set as a leader, and would be a really good value add to the company. So after some convincing, I got him to move to Tulsa, and he worked for me for about, I guess it was close to a year, when they decided to not change directions. They decided to replace me with him. Of course, it was a very respectful conversation, and I understood somewhat what they were doing. Of course, problem is they don't ever ask you before they do it. So I had some opinions about some of the gaps that may be left, but ultimately went our separate ways. Did what any man would do in that situation. I ran straight to my mom's house and told her what happened. And I said, man, I just lost my job. And I won't say that I knew it was coming, but I knew we were struggling for the last 6 months. And you have, 2 record years, for the company, in the history of the company. We had incredible growth and incredible margin improvement and incredible safety improvement. Really 2 really strong years. But then when you start stringing together month after month, you're not making money, or not making anywhere close to enough money. We were making money, but not where we needed to be. You know that as the president, you're on the hot seat. You're the one that goes if they make a change in a scenario like that. There's no easy fix to those things, and we used to say there's no sacred cows. Everybody can be replaced, in any organization that isn't set up like that has a problem, because somebody could die tomorrow and your organization must go on. So anyway, so they let me go, and had a good talk with our CEO. And in fact, I won't say who it is because he might be upset with me about this, but he actually cried when he let me go. And I can't say that it was the first time I'd ever been fired from anything. So I don't know if that's common or not, but I've unfortunately had to let other people go, and I've never cried even when I've been upset about it. He actually cried when he let me go, and I left, and I went and talked to my folks, and my stepdad said, man, I'm really sorry you lost your big, high paying, big time job, but man, I'm glad you lost that job. It was killing you. He said, I think that job was going to kill you. And, it's funny because, I came from practicing law, which is obviously a stressful profession, and it's well known to be stressful. And my dad was kind of the epitome of that. He worked nonstop and was very type A and kind of a perfectionist. And we've all kind of attributed his death a little bit to his level of stress and work. And so coming from practicing law, I thought, oh, this is no problem. I can handle this. And I could, and I did, but it was a different kind of stress. And, my friends would give me a hard time because Friday night came around and I wasn't going out. I didn't want to go to dinner. I want to go to bed. It was by Friday, I was toast. And when you're running a business, it never stops. So even though it's a weekend, you're still working, you're still getting calls. And it just really, it did. It ran me in the ground, but I had a very purposeful approach to it. I wanted to see it succeed. When I took it over, the main reason I did what I did, and the main reason I stayed and didn't just come back to practicing law, which I knew and loved, obviously big change going from general counsel to president. The reason I did it was because of my team and the people I worked with. I loved them. I cared about them. And personally, I did not see anybody else there that I thought could take it then and there and go with it. I didn't see anybody else doing that. And I asked, even when they approached me about it, I said, what if I say no? And they said, we'll find somebody else. And I thought, okay, but it's going to be somebody we don't know. Probably it's going to be somebody that may or may not know the people. The only way I can control how my team and our team is treated is if I take the job. So I did. I took it. We went, I think, 16 months and kept everybody on board. When they made that change, it was a big change for the company. I mean, the people that left the company when they made the change had been there for years and years and years, had a lot of really loyal people there, and it was a tough transition for the company. And so, you know, leading is hard. Leading through transition is harder. And I kind of got all of those experiences thrown at me at once. I failed at some and I succeeded at others, but ultimately went our separate ways. And I was afforded a very, very fortunate situation. And I've got to be careful, obviously, with what I say, but I was in a position when they made that decision that I was able to stay home for 11 months without working. And it was going to be 3 months, and then it was going to be 4 months, and then 6 months. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to take a year because I won't be able to do this again for 25 years. And I've worked really, really hard ever since I got out of school. Really, I should probably say I've worked hard ever since I went to law school. I can't say I worked real hard before law school, but from law school on, I'd worked very hard. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a year and I'm going to do some traveling and relax. And so I did. And then COVID hit and I started getting a little bit nervous because I thought, well, what if by the time my vacation's up, there's no jobs for me anywhere. And so I started looking about month, I think it was about month 6 or 7. I started kind of inquiring about jobs and, you know, looking to kind of get back in the workforce. And I had people tell me, oh, it doesn't look good if you take too much time off. And, you know, I thought, well, I'm not too worried about the optics of it. If I get an interview, I think I could explain myself. And people that have worked very, very hard and led businesses, I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody to say, if you could financially afford to take a pause and so to speak, take a year-long sabbatical, would you? If it didn't affect anything else in your life, they would probably say yes. So I wasn't too worried about that, but COVID hit and I wasn't sure how that was going to all shake out. So I called the managing partner of our firm and I said, you know, he had asked me already what I was going to do and if I wanted to come back. But I called him. I said, I want to talk. And so we met and had a conversation. And, you know, if you think about it, it's a big ask. And luckily he kind of had approached me with it first, but to leave someplace, and of course left on good terms. I gave, you know, I think 2 months notice or 6 weeks. No, I think it was 2 months. I gave like 2 months notice, got my cases wrapped up the best I could and moved on and kept in touch. But to leave someplace and then be able to come back is not all that common, especially when you leave to pursue another opportunity. And of course, going in and having that conversation with our managing partner when I did the first time was really hard. And he said, I would never tell you to not chase your dreams. Go for it, man. I hate to lose you, but yeah, I mean, go do what you got to do. And so luckily the firm was open to having me come back. And so I came back with the expectation, of course, of becoming a shareholder once I kind of got my feet back under me. They made me earn it a little bit. I was of counsel, which meant that I kind of earned my keep, so to speak. I was kind of on commission but I was very fortunate that a lot of my clients came back to me when I announced that I was back and was able to build up my book of business, pretty well, pretty fast. And so about a year after I came back, they made me a shareholder and director of the firm, which is, kind of neat to hold the same position your dad once held. And of course, be back where I consider it home. But so it was quite the journey. And it's interesting that I ended up back where I am, but I can tell you that I am a better lawyer now for having done it. I'm a better business person for sure. And I'm happier in the practice of law having done it, and I don't know if that's just age or if there's a little bit of perspective to that. I've had, another perspective. When I started here, I thought this would be my first and only, big boy job, so to speak. And I'd retire from here. And I hope to do that again and still, but I think that I don't know that I'd be as happy doing what I'm doing now if I hadn't taken the time to explore the business world, which I love. I mean, I love business. I love, the financial side of it. I love the deal side of business. I love the leadership side of business probably the most. But my passion is practicing law and being a trial lawyer and helping people. And, there was a time that in business, I didn't feel like I was helping people, because in the practice of law, when you help somebody, it's a little bit more tangible. If I get a good result for a client, I know I helped them, and it's a very tangible thing. I can see it. In business, you don't have verdicts, you don't have outcomes, you don't have settlements. That doesn't happen. So, you can have a big win with a big deal you put together or a big project you land, but that wasn't the kind of help that I aspired for. And, later, after I left, I probably learned more about how I was helping people than I was when I was actually there, because people don't go to the president of a company and say, or not very often, at least didn't happen for me, you've really helped me be a better manager, or you've really, helped me in this way, or you really have helped me enjoy my job more, or make me better, a better, whatever they may be. You don't get that very often. And so you don't see the impact you have as much as you do in practicing law. And I've kind of found that, my passion in life, and I think that my purpose is really to help people. However that is, it varies in different ways, but that's really kind of my passion. And I was, like I said, I was never a good student until I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. I never was interested in other things. And I think that it's so important to find what you're passionate about and what you're good at, because, I still feel like I'm working every day. I don't wake up every day and go, man, I can't wait to go to the office. Some days I do, but for the most part, I don't just jump out of bed whistling Dixie and ready to go and just excited just to go to work. It happens, thankfully, but and more often now than it used to. If I were independently wealthy, I can assure you I would do a job that was easier to do. But I'm really passionate about it, and really is what I love. And so, to me, I think you have to find what you're passionate about and what you're good at, because sometimes people are good at things they're not passionate about. And so you can be good at your job, you can excel at your job, but you may not be passionate about it and you may not care. Or you may be passionate about something, but you're not good at it. And if you're not good at it, then you're not going to excel professionally. So what I find is you've got to find what you're passionate about and what you're good at, or find what you're passionate about and get good at it. And so what I did was I tried, I try to bring a lot of passion to what I do, and I try to be good at what I do. And there are certain things like the game of golf that I don't expect I'm ever going to be good at. I don't play. People invite me to play golf and I say, I'm not good at it, so I don't enjoy it, and that sounds kind of egotistical. But but I also recognize ego, and I try to recognize when my ego is getting in my way. And it's not that I don't enjoy things I'm not good at. And so I don't go around a golf course and hit a ball, slice a ball 25 times. And then, every once in a while, maybe once around, hit it straight. But now I'm aiming far to the left because I know I'm going to slice it and I hit it in the other fairway. So that's kind of been my experience of trying to find where you really can get a good mix of passion and performance, and where those things intersect, and that's where you should be, and that's kind of where I am. That's why I'm back to doing what I'm doing, and it's been a fun journey.
And I have the same relationship with golf. I just don't play. I don't understand why. So we're in Oklahoma when it's 102 degrees. People want to put nice clothes on and go hit a little ball. I've never understood that. I do want to hop on one part of your story, because with where the economy is going and where it has been the last 2 years, is super important. When we tie our identity to a job and then we lose our job, it's soul crushing for so many people. You and I talked off mic on the phone, and you said, man, I got some good advice from that. But I want to dig into that. What advice did you get after losing that job that was great? And then what did you learn from it?
Yeah. So, when I lost that job, everybody told me, you're going to be fine, and you're going to come out better. And this is going to really push you. And I didn't believe it. I thought there's no way. I mean, there's no way that I'm going to come out of this happier, better, whatever it may be. one thing I learned was one, it was it was a good reality check for me. It was a good ego check for me. I mean, I'm sorry, but most people that are successful have an element of an ego because there's something driving them. And for somebody, and I was never, my ego wasn't call me boss or treat me like a boss or any of that. I didn't care about that. My ego was success and what that looked like. And I think the biggest takeaway from it was, what is success and what does it look like? Is it money? No, in my opinion, it's not. When I was 34 years old and going as general counsel, and even when I was 36 or 37 years old, when they made me the president of the company, I kind of measured success by money, at that point. And I look back and even when we talked, I said, I don't really consider myself successful. I mean, I don't think of myself as a titan. I don't think of it, but to some people I am. But I think what really is the measuring stick for me is, there's success in life, and then there's of course success in business. And what does success look like to you? And that's really the most important thing. And that has to be happy. That has to be not only monetary, but happiness. And I realized that I could be in a job that I didn't dislike the job. I enjoyed the job. I wasn't passionate about it. And I've kind of stepped back and said, you know what, I would rather enjoy my life more and make less money. That is more successful to me than going and grinding at a job that I enjoy, that I like, fine, that was okay. I would never recommend going and grinding at a job you hate, but I could go and make less money and be happier and not have to worry about all of those other things in life that we measure ourselves by. And I think it was just one of those ego checks that kind of knocked me down a notch to say, you know what? I really don't care what other people think. I don't really care about the dollar is not the end game here. It is not what matters the most. What matters most is, am I enjoying my life? We only get one chance at this, right? I mean, from what I understand, that we got one shot, so we might as well enjoy it while we're here. So enjoying our lives and realizing that you're gonna get through it. I mean, to me, obviously, losing my dad at 10 years old, I've been through a little bit of adversity in my life, but I've never looked at myself as somebody who's been through adversity. And it's funny because I'll have conversations with people that talk about, I think right now it's kind of a big topic. People talk about childhood trauma. And I always say, well, I didn't really have a lot of trauma in my childhood. And they're like, didn't your dad die when you're 10? I'm like, well, yeah, that was pretty traumatic, but I had a good family. I had a good support system, So I think it's all kind of a mindset. And I learned after, it took me a few months, but I learned to stop feeling sorry for myself and just to get out there and go back and, pick yourself up and put your ego aside and get after it and get back into being happy and being healthy and being productive. I mean, I think I lost like 25 pounds after I left, all of which I gained and then some, just from being in that environment that I was completely blind to. And so now I just have a different outlook of what success is and what life is and how you measure that. To me, I'm more impressed by somebody overcoming obstacles and adversity than I am somebody that just, got lucky or had a successful business or makes a bunch of money, because there's a lot more to it. And that's where I think people's character really shows through is how they overcome those obstacles and adversities and how they respond. And I didn't respond great the first few months, but eventually I realized it was the blessing that everybody told me it was going to be. And, like I said, I'm happier, I'm less stressed than when I was practicing law in the same exact law firm, doing the same exact thing than I was just, 6 years before. And that was, I think, partly through just some of the learning lessons that I got being out in business and, seeing some really cutthroat stuff with, some of those private equity guys. I mean, they don't, if you're not there, they like you. They loved me when I was making money. As soon as I wasn't, and I'm not saying that, our parent company was very compassionate about it, but the board that was making the decisions and pulling the purse strings, and rightfully so. I mean, if they've invested a lot of money in this, and I've got to show a return on that. And if I can't, then they need to move on, and that's what they did.
But I think something else is really important, adversity, really with what's hit the last couple of years, what's getting ready to hit. You walk through some of it as a kid, you walk through it as a professional, getting at a young age, taking the reins and then giving you something huge and deciding to tackle it and dealing with the consequences. It's funny to hear an attorney say, man, those people are cutthroat, right? But when you're dealing with that much money, right, it's a whole different ballgame. So what is it for you, or what things that you believe in that kept you moving forward, that keep you moving the needle regardless of the season you're in?
Yeah. So obviously I think that having faith is helpful, whatever your faith may be, but having faith is important. Having a good support structure around you is really important. But one thing that I think has always been something that has been good for me is I say I stay hungry. I never really am satisfied. I never look back and pat myself on the back and say, man, you really did a good job. Doesn't mean I don't celebrate my wins. I do. But at the same time, I'm sure there is a point in somebody's life when enough is enough. And I can tell you, I had this conversation. If I were Elon Musk, I probably would have stopped at the first $25 million deal and I wouldn't be a billionaire, and that would be okay. But short of that, I stay hungry, and I try not to ever be satisfied and rest on my laurels beyond celebrating my wins. I mean, I absolutely think you should celebrate your accomplishments and your achievements and enjoy them and stop and smell the roses and all of that stuff. But at some point you have to also say, okay, what's next? And what else can I do to be a better person, to improve me? I try to learn something every day. If I go through a day without learning anything, I call that a failure. And one of the things that in business, I was learning a ton, but one of the things I love about practicing law is every case that I do is different. Every day I learn something new that I didn't know before, whether it be a new industry. I've had some cases that the client comes to me with, a case about a product or something, and I've never even heard of it. My wheels are kind of spinning. I'm going, okay, get your head around this. And I do. And then now all of a sudden I know how to I couldn't obviously actually manufacture it, but I know how things are made that I never knew even existed before. Now I know they exist and how they function and how they're made. So I always just try to never be satisfied and always want to be constantly learning and constantly improving myself. If you're not trying to improve yourself as a person, as an intellectual on a daily basis, I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice, because you are never going to reach your potential if you don't push yourself in that way.
Oh, I 100% agree. Well, that's one of the best sayings is, it's not what you do in a day, it's what you do daily. And that's one of the things you and I talked about. So outside of learning, what's your process look like though? What do you do every day that allows you to move the needle or be successful?
Yeah. So, I've read quite a few books on leadership and things like that. And I wish I could say I was the guy that got up and ran a mile and went and worked out and exercised. I'm not. I have become the guy that gets up early though. And what I do differently than I did when I was younger is I get up early and I relax. I spend, I may get up at 5:30 in the morning. My alarm isn't set for that time, but I often wake up at those times. And I wake up and I relax and I take my time and I read, read the news and, maybe watch some TV. I'm not, sometimes I say shallow and people will be critical of it. I'm not a real deep person. I'm not the kind of person who's going to meditate on things every morning. I think those are great practices for people that do. For me, I work my mind's a little too fast for that. Maybe I'm probably the ideal candidate for it is to slow down. But my way of slowing down is just taking time in the morning, relaxing, not being rushed, because there will be plenty of rush and plenty of pressure when I get here. So I wake up early, I take my time, I give myself plenty of time to get here. I'm very routine. I go to a lot of the same restaurants. I eat the same meal at those same restaurants. I can also be spontaneous and I enjoy those times, but on my day-to-day basis, I read the news. You've got to know what's going on in the world around you. I look at the stock market. Even before I had any money in the stock market, I looked at the stock market. I think that goes back to when I was a kid. My grandpa always had the ticker on the bottom of the TV and he'd be writing down his stocks, tracking what they were doing. It's probably where I got it. But before I was even in the stock market, I looked at the market. I started reading the paper because I didn't want a client to ask me about a current event and I didn't know. And I sounded stupid. No, I haven't heard anything about that. What are you talking about? It's on the, front page of the paper today, or it was, it's in the Wall Street Journal. So every morning I wake up and I kind of read those things and browse the internet and find out what's going on. And I'll look at the stock market. Been trying to avoid that lately. So not looking at the ticker as much as I used to, because it's not very inspiring, but I do those things. And another thing is that I'm terrible about is healthy eating. I get in bad times where I'm eating really unhealthy. And I've started to finally learn at 42 years old that, as you get older, those things get harder and harder to get, pounds get harder to get rid of, but your brain and the way you think and the way you function isn't the same. And you've got to fuel your body in a way that is going to make it perform better. And thinking about what you put it, I used to never drink water. I would drink maybe a glass of water every other day. Now, first thing I do, very first thing in the morning is I drink a glass of water. I probably have 3 glasses of water before I leave the house. Whereas I used to not drink 3 glasses of water in a day. But, I also noticed though, as I got back into practicing law and I'm reading more, obviously lawyers read a lot more. You got to work out your mind. I mean, your mind is just like anything else. And if you're not working it and you're not exercising it, it's not going to get any better. And as we age, I think it's even more important, but if I'd have started young and probably saved myself a few brain cells and been a little healthier, I think it would have been different. I really do. So, I get up early, I drink water, I'm back to trying to eat healthy again. And at the end of the day, I go home and I try to leave as much of it at the office as I can. I don't check emails usually after about 7 o'clock at night, because if I do, now I'm going all night. Obviously there's occasions at work things will come up, but if I take a work call at 9 o'clock, I'm up till midnight because my wheels are spinning again and I'm not going to shut it off. So I try to leave, work at the office when I leave as best I can.
Yeah, you and I are similar. I don't need to have energy to be inspired to get energy. Anything that excites me, I get. So I've actually found I was the workaholic in the morning, right? I'll get up and work out and do all that. Well, I'm close to 40, so now everything hurts first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
I don't have problem cranking. Nobody needs to wonder what I'm thinking because I communicate, right? And so for me, and I think it's different for everybody else, I've just got up like you do early. I'm going to bed early is my thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just really slow down. And I'm kind of selfish and I do what I want to do, let my brain unwind because the day will hit when I get there. And then I've been selfish with my workouts. So I like to work out, but I'll go at noon or the end of the day and take an hour off work. Body feels great. There's no need in working out when you're crippled, right?
Right.
So I found that out too. I've also found out, just like you have, is just being mindful to cut garbage out, garbage in, garbage out. And so I can't drink soda anymore. It messes with the way you think, it dehydrates you. So I'm cranking.
I wish I could do that. I haven't achieved that goal yet.
I think the funny thing is you read the books, the leadership books, and really what you think about, but all those little water, the practice and everything. Yeah. If a young professional is listening to this, start doing it now, because when you hit around 40, it makes all the difference in the world because your body's not the same. And they really are right. Everything in every one of those books is 100% right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing is, when you're young and bulletproof, like I was until just a few years ago, I don't need that. I was literally drinking a glass of water every other day. I mean, it was ridiculous, and drinking soda and drinking alcohol, all those things. And I still drink alcohol, but not anything like I used to when I was young and things like that. I try to do, any of that kind of stuff. I try to do in moderation. I don't try to be moderate about water. I don't try to be moderate about love. I don't try to be moderate about, the things, the healthy choices, the things that could hurt me. I try to be moderate, but I still enjoy, I try to do in moderation. But I'll also say that when I was running that company, I had a friend from high school that was like I don't know what his term was. He's a consultant, a coach, and a kind of executive coach. And when I first, saw it, I reached out to him, and it took us a couple of weeks to set our first meeting. And we were meeting for coffee at Utica Square, which is, I live right by there. So he finally said, Tad, it's taking you 2 weeks to set a morning coffee meeting with me to sit down and try to help yourself. And he said, you think that self-help is selfish. And I said, I do. I've got other things to do. What's dragging me down, or what's being hard on me right now, can wait, because we got work to do. I got things to do. I got to do this. And that was a huge, huge error on my part. I tried to improve myself in ways of reading the books and getting the knowledge, all of which you should do. But at the same time, I wouldn't take an hour or 2 hours in the morning to go sit down and talk to this guy and talk to him and tell him what I was, going through and the challenges. And, he said, well, I have plans that I put people on, leaders on, and executives on. He goes, I don't know that you really need that. You need someone to talk to. You need someone who understands, man. He's like, you're in a position that not a lot of, whatever I was at the time, probably 38, 39, not a lot of 39-year-olds are in this position, and you don't have peers to talk to. And after I left, I had people, friends, dads who've run companies for years say, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you call me and ever talk to me about some of what you were going through? And that part wasn't ego. That was, I was too short-sighted to think about it and say, you know what, I need to go to these people and I need to get help, because you know what, if every good leader wants to develop other leaders, whether it's in their own organization or in another organization, you will never, I don't think you'll ever find a good leader of an organization or business that wouldn't take the time to spend with you to develop you. And certainly if you're in the same organization. I always said, I want, if I can I took a guy out of the field one time that was, he was our driver of the year. And I wanted to make him a trainer. And they're like, you're taking our best guy out and you want to make him a trainer? That doesn't work. And I said, but if he can create 6 of him, then we win. And if we can make him better and he can make others better, we all win. And so that's where I think that, as young professionals and young leaders are doing this, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to, take care of your body, take care of your mind. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to go to help. And I think one thing that this generation that's coming into the workforce now that's a lot better than the previous generations is they're not afraid to ask for help. They're not afraid to express their opinions about things or what they are or aren't willing to do. They're not as much of the, suck it up and bear it group that a lot of us were. If you need to talk to somebody, go to a counselor, go get counseling, go to a leadership coach. That is not selfish. And that was one of the things that I did learn is that, through that whole process of being in business, is that self-help is not selfish, and taking care of your body and going to exercise and all those things, make time for those things, because at the end of the day, it's your life to live, and it can't all be around work. But if you have a more fulfilled life and you're happier in your life in total and you're healthier, your performance is going to be better, which ultimately is going to lead to me, in my opinion, more success.
Well, and one last thing, I want to go back to, some of the seasons that were tough, right? You dug into some of those, but you always said this person had this advice or this person had this advice. Who are some of the people that you admire along your journey?
Yeah. So, I'll tell you that the CEO that actually terminated me was one he was a huge inspiration for me. And, one of the things he used to tell me is he was a very faithful guy. And he'd say, one of the things he used is am I honoring God today? Did I honor God today, or did I honor God in what I did? And I don't mean to get too much into faith on anybody. Take it however you want, but did you honor your wife today? Did you honor your parent? Whatever it may be, did you honor yourself? That was some advice that I got that was extremely beneficial to me, because I started stepping back. I've always held myself to a high standard of moral character and ethical, standards and things like that. I never had to overcome a lot of temptation and those kinds of things. I know I'm getting a little off course, but I watched a deal the other day on TikTok. This guy said, "How did I end up in federal prison?" Well, let me tell you, the first thing I did that was bad. The first time I broke the rules was I was working for the securities firm, and they had a $10,000 bonus if I signed up 40 people to pay $250 for this advice, financial advice plan. And I was at 37 people with 2 days left, and I just knew I couldn't get the other 3. And I went to my manager and I said, "I'm not going to make it. I'm 3 short." And he said, "Go get 3 money orders, go to the bank, get 3 money orders, go back to 3 people who were really on the fence, but just didn't want to pay the $250 and say, 'I'm giving it to you as a gift.'" He did that, and he got his $10,000 bonus. It's dishonest. He didn't get those people. He didn't really do what it took to achieve it. I don't struggle with that. But what I struggle with sometimes is looking outside of myself and wondering if I am doing, basically holding myself accountable probably is the best way to say it. When he talked about, did I honor God today? To me, that's an accountability thing. He was accountable in his faith, and he lived his life of accountability. And I think that's something that you have to do. I actually had a friend that asked me to write something for a book. His son was going to college, and he asked me to write an excerpt for this book he was putting together for his kid who was going to college. And first, I was really honored that he asked me to do it. This guy was, talk about a titan. I mean, this guy was a giant, hugely, wildly successful guy, and he asked me to write something for his son. And I thought, oh, what do you tell this guy's kid? And I came up with something, but and I'll probably butcher it now, but there's like an old proverb or something that says, act in the valley as if there's somebody on the hill watching. And that's not, I don't look at that as a fear thing. I look at that as an honor thing, and doing the right thing and having integrity. And when you're down in the valley, do the right thing, because somebody's maybe up on the hill watching. And so I thought about that, and I went back to that when I was in my self-pity too, after losing my job, was, for example, losing my dad. Like, what would my dad think if I was sitting here, feeling sorry for myself? He'd say, "Kid, get up and go do something." Okay, so you fell down. That doesn't make you a failure. You failed, but that doesn't make you a failure. Get up and go do something. So he was extremely influential, and our CEO was extremely influential in my growth. And he was, like I said, really strong in his faith, and so he really kind of helped me in that area too. But of course, my family has been just unbelievably supportive of me, and I think that's hugely important. I'm not married. I don't have kids. Some people measure success by that. Obviously, if success to you is being married with kids, then I'm a complete failure. And that's okay. I accept. That part of my life hasn't developed yet. But what I've always also done, and I don't know who told me this, but I know I can't imagine it. I made it up, but I've always been a dreamer. And I've always thought, I'm going to do something big, and I'm going to make something big happen, and the problem is you can't just be a dreamer. You've got to put it into action. You've got to take steps to get there. That's something I've always been pretty good about. When I have an idea, I literally have a book that has business ideas that I just have written down over the years. Some things I've invented that unfortunately they already exist. Some things have never happened. Some things have, but I just always try to stay learning and improving and doing that and dreaming and never just being satisfied. And I think that's where really success can come from, is having belief in yourself. And when I look at how far I've come from the kid that I thought I was stupid, I made bad grades. My brother was brilliant, is brilliant, and always made straight A's. And here I was, not making great grades in school. And it's because I hadn't found what moved me and motivated me and what I was passionate about. And I hadn't intersected that with what I was good at. So I think that my advice to anybody out there is, especially young people, is, find that intersection of good and passion and go after that, and then take care of your body, your mind. I know it probably sounds funny, and you probably laugh at, the old guys that say, oh, drink your water and take your vitamins, but hey, Hulk Hogan told me to eat my vitamins and do all that, and I didn't listen to him, and I obviously should have. But today, like you said, I wake up and I have to stretch before I get out of bed every day. So that's the first thing I do. I stretch, then I drink my water, then I lay around, and then I get up. But yeah, I got so much good advice from so many people over the years, and there's so many things that, it's really hard. It's really hard to pinpoint. It's really hard to pinpoint what one specific thing that really moved me or really helped me. But I think the biggest thing is just being accountable to yourself, to your family, and not letting your ego get too big, and not ever letting yourself stay down too long. You're going to get knocked down. And to me, it's how you get back up. And I really, I judge a person, for lack of a better word. I try not to judge people, but inherently we do, even if we say we don't. I judge a person's character more by how they respond, whether it be to adversity or even a situation they created. If somebody makes a really bad decision that maybe even is unethical or immoral, but then they go and they own that decision and they rectify that decision, I'm more impressed by that than somebody who's never made a mistake, because one, they don't exist. They've made mistakes. They're just hiding it well. That honesty, integrity, don't be fake. There's a lot of people out there that put everything on social media that is, not real life. Don't live up to those expectations, because they don't exist. That person's life doesn't exist the way you think it does. What you see is not what you get. I try to never be that person. I've always kind of been a what you see is what you get person. I try to treat people with respect, and I go back to when I was young, and now I'm, coming across people that I may not have been friends with, but I went to school with, but I was always nice to them because they were good people, or they're people, not good people. They were good. They were people. And so I think it's how you treat people is probably one of the most important things, and respecting people. And another piece of advice is, I don't know where I got this from, but I've always wanted, I never wanted to make people work for me. I wanted to make people want to work for me. I wanted people to want to do a good job for me, just as I want to do a good job for my clients. I don't want a client to have to make me do a good job. You're not going to have to make me do a good job, because I put enough pressure on myself to do a good job. And I think that a really good leader is somebody who can get somebody to want to do a good job, not only for you, but for themselves. That's where I think you really start creating the total package in a young leader is that they're good at getting people to want to succeed themselves and want to have their team succeed, and get rid of some of the selfishness that a lot of really successful people have, because unfortunately a lot of really successful people are selfish, but it's come at a price of family. It's come at a lot of prices for those people. And if you look at some of the most financially successful people in the world, they've been through a lot of failed marriages, and there's a reason for it. And that's because their focus and what they put their importance on was strictly their business. And that to me is not successful.
I agree. And Tad, you and I went back and forth a little bit on LinkedIn. If somebody has a question or wants to get a hold of you, is that kind of your preferred way for them to reach out?
Yeah, LinkedIn or shoot me an email. It's tbogan@jonesgotcher.com. Or call my office. It doesn't matter. But yeah, LinkedIn's a good way to do it. I'm not on LinkedIn a ton, but I do get on it from time to time, and I usually get an email if you send me a message. But I'm here to help. If there's a leader in a business out there that's struggling, trying to find, their path or whatever it may be, or they want to bounce an idea off of me, I'm open to that. I mean, I have clients now that call me, and it's not legal advice. It's, I was thinking about, doing another location. What do you think about this spot? And I'm honest, I'm brutally honest. I don't like X, Y, and Z about it, So if anybody has a question about, something that they're doing, or they just want somebody to talk to, or they're young and they're coming up and they're trying to figure out their way, more than happy to talk to you if I can. I mean, obviously, please understand, I am a pretty busy person, but lunches are usually good, coffee in the morning, something like that. I'll be happy to sit down and talk to somebody and try to help them out.
At least 2 weeks out, you'll get that coffee.
Yeah, I'm better now. I'm better now than I used to be, because now I prioritize for myself a little better than I used to.
Well, everybody,
and that would be for them. So if I'm helping somebody else, I'm better
Right.
prioritizing for them too.
that was great advice. Everybody, thank you so much. This is Kellen Count, owner of New Wave Solutions. Tad, sincerely, thank you for giving today.
You bet. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's been fun.
Yeah.